limiting belief. So your belief that your life is busy. So are you willing to uh, to take responsibility and say, okay, well, they have made the commitment, they prioritized it. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't been able to do the book yet because I haven't prioritized it. Now I am willing to do it. Because
Right.
if they don't, then my question is, well, what are the chances that you're actually able to get your goal? And that goal is grow their business, increase their branding, higher visibility, credibility, authority, leave a legacy. What are the chances that you're able to do that
Mm-hmm.
if you don't prioritize creating the book?
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So once they agree that, the chances are low, then I want to understand, okay, like what are the consequences of that? The
Mm-hmm.
consequences of that are the opposite of what they want. So then my question is, are you willing to change that? And if they are willing to change that, like now they understood that it's been them in their way. And
Mm-hmm.
now I say, yes, I want to change that. Now we can move forward. Now it makes sense to move forward.
Right. And then, like, you post really great questions there. Some points of reflection for our viewers. Like, are you really making a priority of what you want to get in this, right? So, posing those questions, I was just wondering, having for our viewers to have reflected on those questions, what do you think will be the next tangible steps after they recognize, oh, I need to make writing a book a priority? Because I would imagine for the people who say that they are busy, it's more of what you've mentioned, a fear of change, that they're not really someone who probably don't really write every day. So like that's maybe where their fear is coming from. Like how would they integrate a writing schedule in their already busy schedule,
Mhm.
right? But we've already addressed that if we want to get our books published, if we want to get our ideas,
Yeah.
across the world, then we
Then
have to get the
talk about
priority.
the logistics,
Mm-hmm.
right? Talk about the logistics. Okay, are you
Mm-hmm.
able? How much time are you able to set aside? Are you able to set aside an hour a day, an hour and a half a day? If you are, then you can hammer it out in a month. Like, you can hammer out the book in a month. There's this
Right.
thing, NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, where people get together every November, novelists, to write a 50,000 word book. A
Mm-hmm.
50,000 book is 200 pages. And there's this challenge. So everybody writes. To write 50,000 words in a month, essentially, like if you're consistent like I am, you would divide it into 30 days. So every day you end up with 1,700 words, more or less. In order to actually do it, you would create an outline, strategize, do all that before that
Mm-hmm.
month. Then during that month, you can write. I've spoken to people who are brain surgeons, who are leaders of huge companies,
Mm-hmm.
whose names people who run several businesses and have 3 kids and 7 dogs. And they told me, yes, they can set aside an hour and a half a day in order to
Mm-hmm.
do. They put their mind to it. Okay, so that's
Right.
one thing. Um, but first, we need to actually admit that yes, we're going to take responsibility. We're going to commit to it. We're going to make the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it's unrealistic, then we can talk. Tell me about the process. It makes sense to talk about the process if we know who we're talking to. Okay, so if we're talking to somebody, it's like because you can work with a book coach or you can work with a ghostwriter, right? So as somebody said, well, then talk to me about tell me about the book coach, tell me about a ghostwriter. So my first question is, okay, well, are you a good writer? Like, can you write really good content? So in that case, we can start with setting up a system where you can write. And the answer is no, I'm actually a shitty writer. I'm like, okay, well, do you want to write a shitty book, right? Do you want to write a shitty book? Because we could potentially set up an imprint called shittybooks.com.
Right.
And and I think so it's almost a joke, right?
Mm-hmm.
When people ask these questions where the answer is obvious. No, I'm a shitty writer. Should I write? Well, only if you want a shitty book. Okay. So let's talk about working with a ghostwriter. Another limiting belief is, okay, well, so I haven't done this before because I didn't have the time. Which, okay, we resolved that. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't making the time. Now I'm committing to making the time. So now we're talking about, okay, so besides actually the time thing, like what else has caused you not to get the book done? Well, we could say, okay, well, I'm a shitty writer, and I have this internal sort of resistance inside me to have my words written by somebody else, because
No.
I might use my voice. Okay, so that's a big thing that needs to be reframed, and we just show a different perspective. Well, okay, the people I talk to, and I'm really happy that I talk to these types of people, are successful entrepreneurs, successful business people. So typically I say, okay, well, you have these talents, you've been able to accomplish so much. Writing is not one of them. Okay, so typically if you get to the top, however you want to define that, you don't do it by yourself. Like, you do it by working with teams, by hiring people. So in the same way, you hire somebody who's skilled at writing so that you can produce the highest possible quality book. That book is an extension of you. So why would you write something that's not good if you can hire somebody who can do this? So this is also respect for your reader. Do you want your reader to say, like, what are you going to say? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a bad writer. Like, I'm a good entrepreneur, I'm a bad writer. Okay, well, if you're a good entrepreneur, you're going to find a solution to that, because that's what entrepreneurship is. Entrepreneurs find solutions. So then essentially we need to go into, well, do you feel like, you would rather write it yourself and just have a low quality book? Or do you want to have a ghostwriter, where the ghostwriter's job is to be like a chameleon, essentially, and be able to portray your writing in the way you want it to be? Publish a book where people will say, wow, this is really high quality, I want to work with this person. So when you start looking at it that way, it's just so obvious. Like, it's really funny. It's like saying, okay, well, we need to create a logo, right? Now, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm not an artist. I'm gonna, but no entrepreneur says, I'm not an artist, but I'm gonna do the logo. It's obvious. Hire an expert. So why should writing a book be any different? Nobody says, no, I need to draw my logo because otherwise I'm going to lose my voice from my artistic expression. And you hire an artist going to convey your artistic expression. So that's another thing, and that comes up not very frequently, but it's also not infrequent. That ghostwriter thing.
Right. So what I'm hearing now is that really all these excuses are but excuses, because there's always a solution to every problem, right? It's not the first time that people face these struggles, right? It's been there all this time, but it's really a matter of you taking that decision and taking action that, yes, if I want to write a book, then I will commit to writing a book. And these excuses are actually just a hurdle that we can have a solution on. So related to that, so why is the excuse, I need to think about it, often a code for fear and not really logic? So like that's another thing to consider, right? Some people needing to consult.
Yeah, I think about it as just a smoke screen, right? Like, it's not a real thing. And I think about it typically comes at the end, when once we've gone through the presentation and everything. The real excuses or limiting beliefs, I like to uncover them during the conversation. So like conversation, so before like showing what we can do, because that also allows me to tailor the presentation. Okay, so if somebody's telling me they're an amazing writer, I'm not going to suggest a ghostwriter. If somebody says I'm an amazing writer and I have time, like, it doesn't make sense for me to go over the ghostwriting process, does it? No. So that's why I want to understand, like, the situation of the person I'm talking to, so that I can present the most applicable solution to them. Because multiple, right? It makes no sense to, for me to start the conversation by pitching all the different things we can do if I don't even know, what this person needs. And there are also situations where we don't want to be affiliated. Like, there are people who want to write books, and we don't want to be anywhere near those books. So there's some screening going on in the background as well. Like, our reputation is very important to us. So I think about, I need to think about it. That would be at the end. Something a little bit more subtle is like, it's not the right timing. Why is it not the right timing? Okay. Because it's a smoke screen. Like, it means nothing. Okay, it's not the right timing. Why? So one thing could be, well, because I don't feel like I'm done yet. Like, I don't feel like I've accomplished enough. Okay, that could be a reason why somebody might say in the future. So this is another thing. Somebody told me, I left the corporate world and now I'm going to, now I'm working on my business, and I want to write a book about leaving the corporate world and, empowering people to be able to start their own business. And he's been doing this for 4 years and a half or so. And I'm like, okay, this is great. Like, this is something I needed, like when I left my corporate job back in the day.
Mhm.
And he told me, well, but first I need I need this company to become a unicorn. I'm like, okay, well, and I told him after a bunch of, different perspectives that I shared, I said, okay, well, how can we be telling our readers to take the leap, leave the corporate world, and start our own company if
Mhm.
we are not able to take that leap and start writing our book on how we're doing this before it becomes a unicorn?
Right.
Because we are asking them to leave their corporate job before they have a safety net or something that tells them like they've succeeded. So I asked, how can we be congruent? How are we congruent? And he started laughing and telling me he's having this out of body experience, and that he essentially cannot argue.
Mhm.
So from wanting to do this book, once he has this unicorn, now his thinking is, well, essentially he already has everything inside of him.
Right.
Everything he's been doing for the last 4 years to create this unicorn, like
Mhm.
these are the lessons. I said, oh, well, what happens if you don't create a unicorn? Like, what then? Are you all going to commit suicide? Or are you going to, rise, go back in the saddle and start working on something else? Because that's what entrepreneurship is. Or
Right.
adapt. Because that's what we're preaching. We're not telling people leave the corporate job because you're going to then, create a unicorn. It doesn't matter if we do or not.
Mhm.
That's a perspective shift. I spoke to another leader, a CMO of a really well-known company, and he told me, I'm like, you have an amazing story. Like what you've done is spectacular. He created a unicorn. He actually created a unicorn, and he said, well, I don't want to be a one-hit wonder, like one-time
Mhm.
wonder. I need to show that I can create another unicorn. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay. So then you can go through this whole process again. I'm like, okay, what's the metric? Why two? Why not three? Why not four? Why not five? Why not 10? Maybe 10 unicorns is what you need to create in order to actually feel this
Mhm.
validation that now you're, now you have the permission to write this book.
Mhm.
So that's another way of looking at it. And I'm not saying that everybody needs to write a book. I'm not saying everybody should, but but there are signs.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's really funny. People say, okay, when I go and I do a talk, people ask me if I have a book. Okay, my team asks me if I want a book. Sometimes people start the conversation with like that. Okay,
Mhm.
so what is this? It's external. I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, well, do you feel like that this book is in you? Like only 1% of the population is ever gonna write a book. Like
Mhm.
why wouldn't you be fine just staying at 99%? Like why even have a conversation? Why not just be a happily walking mortal who never
Mhm.
so that's a question that we need to ask ourselves.
Right.
Um, so that is, yeah, I'm very sensitive to like externalizing. It's like a side thing. I was watching this um, sort of law of attraction type of story, and one person was saying like to the mentor, I keep visualizing this couple walking down the beach and
Mhm.
having this life. There's this man and this woman, and he was saying essentially, he doesn't like he's not fulfilled. He cannot find a partner. He's like, I keep visualizing these two people, and
Mhm.
the mentor said, well, are you one of them? And no,
Right.
it's like, no. Okay, so like that's why you're not able to to find it. So it's the external. Like I see these two people. So when somebody says, people tell me I should write a book, like, well, okay, well, people might tell me to get a tattoo on my forehead. Like, is that a good internal reason? So then I want to go, okay, well, cool, but like you don't have to, right? Like,
Right.
what is that internal thing inside of you that's causing you to want to have these conversations, be doing research. Research is another one. Be doing research about it, as opposed to and just sit on the beach or whatever. Research is another big one. Like,
Yeah.
some people will justify that they are doing something because they say they're doing research, but then we have whole analysis by paralysis, or paralysis by analysis. Because like you can research until you die, essentially, but you're never going to know like what it's like until you dive in.
Right.
So it's like, okay, let's say I'm an obese person and I need to start working out. So I might do research, 10 gyms around me. So I'm doing my due diligence. I'm doing the research. It's taking me 3 now, but I probably could have just gone into the first one and started a routine.
Right.
And in those 3 months, I would have, become significantly healthier. But no, instead I go and, I need to do my due diligence. I'm just gonna check all of these things out. And, but then we're not really, we're not like, we feel like we're doing something, but we're not really doing anything. We're spending a lot of time trying to convince ourselves that we are doing something, but we're not. Like we didn't make the leap. So you're never in, like you're never committed until you're actually committed.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course. So definitely, like wherever skill level people are, like whatever their concerns are, there's really a way for us to move forward with whatever need they need to move forward, right? And alongside that is to, of course, to have that reason within yourself that okay, this is not just something that I'm not gonna do just because other people tell me I should write a book, right? But of course, you have to have that internal reason, and that you know another factor with that is that you figure it out as you go, right? You don't have to have it all together when you start, but you have to take the action and put the puzzle pieces as you put it together, right? And so, oh, do you want to add something more, Alinka?
Well, for example, somebody will say, I need to, I can't, I can't, like, I can't make a decision. Like, I need to talk to my wife, right? I need to, I mostly speak to, most of our target audience is male. Okay. So some people will say they need to talk to their wife. And I have a whole perspective on that, right? It's really funny, like if my husband came to me and said, "Hey, can I I don't know, can I buy a motorboat?" I'm like, whatever you want to do, like why are you even asking, right? Like so it's really interesting, and in some cases for sure it's well, what is it? Because what is it really, right? Yeah, you can say I need to ask my wife, I need to ask my cousin, I need to ask whatever, my spiritual guide. Okay, but essentially, whose responsibility is it to go after those goals?
Right.
Okay, and who's going to feel the regret that we do it? So you can go to your wife and say, make this decision for me. Like, I'm abdicating responsibility. I'm not going to make this decision. You make it for me. Why? Because then if it doesn't work out, then you can say it was your fault and blame her.
Right.
So to me, it's like the most successful entrepreneurs that I see that we work with, nobody's ever said they need to talk to their wife. Like, they will have great relationships,
Yeah.
but it's like if you imagine, for example, who like Warren Buffett, right? Like, do you feel like he
Mm,
goes and consults his wife to make his investments?
mhm.
I don't
Just
think so.
right. So it's really
And
just up to you to really be committed to your decision to pursue something you want to go after. So, in relation to that, Alink, I want to hear a bit of your story. So, as someone who has already crossed the line and worked past your excuses, and you've already published several books, so to encourage our viewers, if they still have their excuses in their head, like, ah, that doesn't work for me, as for you, what is it about taking action and moving past your excuses that makes it also rewarding?
well, the way you want to think about it is, am I going to overcome this excuse, or am I going to allow it to overcome me? And am I? There's a great quote that I have printed out here somewhere between these papers on my desk. Winners find ways, losers find excuses.
Mm-hmm.
So like you cannot be a little bit of both. It's
Right.
it's either one or the other, and the only person that can overcome those excuses is you. I can show different perspectives and sort of um, put things in a different light,
Mm-hmm.
as we went over the busy thing, right? Everybody that tells me they're busy is convinced they're the busiest person in the world. And then I tell them something super basic. We all have 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
How is it possible that these super busy people that also have 24 hours are able to do it? So, so what is it internally? Okay, so now we can no longer externalize. But a lot of people have been externalizing their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I have a 1 hour conversation, sometimes it's very difficult to overcome decades of thinking that is some external factors uh, are ruling our lives, and help people overcome this.
Mm-hmm.
But many, I think that the great thing, like with the people that I talk to, is typically people get to this position where they want to write a book, is because inside of them, like, they have this determination. They have um, it's a creative endeavor. It's it's something. I mean, essentially, I think we all have within us. Well, because if we think about all the tribes, it was all storytelling. So how did anything survive?
Mm-hmm.
These thousands of years, it was all told through stories. Then there were
Mm-hmm.
the tablets or whatever, the cave paintings before that, I think. But it was all storytelling. So we do have this
Right.
within us. And some are more detailed when they tell a story. Some people are much more like factual based, but we all communicate. So,
Mm-hmm.
so we all use storytelling, even if we don't think about it as storytelling. Like if we're
Right.
sending an email to somebody explaining why we're not moving forward with an offer, with something that somebody pitched, we're telling a story. We're selling this story to the salesperson, and we're selling it to ourselves, which is the most important thing. And the story that we're selling might be those excuses that we believe in so much.
Mm-hmm.
So something is something we all have inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but then comes, okay, like, do we feel like what we have to say is something that should be should be seen by more people?
Mm-hmm.
um and there are going to be signs. People, for example, if you see that you're repeating yourselves a lot, like you're repeating yourself a lot, like, do you know how many times I had to explain the busy thing? And then
Mm-hmm.
what if I wrote a book where I went over that? So I wrote your book or your excuse. Your book or your excuse were part of the book. We go over these things. So now people come to the conversation, and I might ask them a question. I'm like, okay, so, like, like, What's caused you not to write a book up until now? If they've been thinking about it for the last 10 years. Okay. I mean, so like to me, it's just natural. Okay. So why isn't the book there? Like there's something holding. Like what is it? Because it makes no sense for me to go and pitch, because that's been holding them back for 10 years is going to be the same thing that will hold them back this time. So first we want to resolve that, or it makes no sense. So what is it? And like they will say, I mean, yeah, I was busy, and then like, okay, I read your book. I read your book, so I know. So I realize it's an excuse. And we'll still go over it, because it's different when you go over it just live, have a conversation, than reading it in a book. But it's the awareness that I don't know much about the Alcoholics Anonymous that crowd, but from what I've heard is the first step is awareness, or taking responsibility that you have an issue. You can't improve, like you can't do anything, because if you don't admit you have a problem, why would you do anything to change? So what we need to do is we need to admit, okay, this actually is the thing that has been holding me back. And now that we've identified it, okay, so we're gonna overcome this, or we're gonna let it overcome us, which is a good and I can help, but it's only the person like it's only you that can take that step. I can only be the cheerleader. Like I cannot take that step. That's an individual thing, that each of our offers that we now have successfully published have taken. Some of them have had very little limiting beliefs or concerns. Some of them none. Some of them a lot. Some of them on the fence. But all of them have one thing in common. They took that step by themselves. Like I cannot do that for anybody. All the people, more than 500 people that we've helped, they took that step and said, okay, I'm in, I'm committed, I want to do this. It's not I want to do this, I'm in, I'm doing this.
Right. Yeah, that's really great to hear. And well, now I'm wondering, like in the process of that, I'm just curious, in your process, have you had like clients who kind of mulled over the concept of publishing a book for a long time? Like, what was your observation in terms of like, pitching the idea, then from really taking that action? Like, how long does it usually take for them to think about it? If you would want to put a number on that, let's say.
It varies widely. It's not uncommon. It happens quite frequently for people to have a conversation with me and sign on during the call and commit fully on the call, and commit financially on the call. Typically, like they would have had some, that there would have been some awareness about what we do before, right? Like, take a look what's going on at the website. Read one of my books. So to just some level of awareness and sophistication. And then it's essentially just a fine-tuning conversation. Some people take a very long time, but it depends from which moment you count, right? Because you can count from the moment that they wanted to do a book. Some people, like, since they were kids, and they come to us, when they're mature, right? So they've been wanting to do the book for decades. But there's a reason. There's a reason they haven't. So what is that reason? That's what we want to uncover. And then there's the biggest one that typically comes up at the end, but it doesn't have to, is it's a big investment. But that's all, like, depending on where you're standing.
Right.
Because would Warren Buffett say that that Ferrari is a big investment? Probably not. Okay, so it depends like where you're looking from, uh,
Mhm.
and is it really like the people that we work with? These are people that are able to charge $5,000, $10,000 for a speaking engagement.
Mhm.
So like, how many of those speaking engagements do you need to make an investment like that back?
Mhm.
Not many, and you're done.
Right.
So um, that's one thing, just the logic of it. But the other is, okay, well, is it a matter of, again, we're going to look at the circumstances and say, I don't have the funds, therefore I'm not going to get my goal, or are we going to get resourceful because we're entrepreneurial people that are able to get resourceful. And if you live in a developed country, like, people have access to funding, people have access to uh, um, there's just like, I don't know, people call me or I get messages all the time, do I want this loan? I don't want the loan, but like, if I wanted to, it's like, I just need to pick up some latest email or text message that will send to me.
Mhm.
um, and then, again, like, let's take a look at, let's say, Steve Jobs, right? So he didn't have the money when he wanted to start Apple. Like,
Right.
he came from a very difficult background. I think he was in an orphanage for a long time. Was adopted by a family that was not a wealthy family. Was somewhere. I mean, he was fine, but there was no excess of anything. So he didn't
Mhm.
have funds to start a company, but
Mhm.
he sold his car, and his partner, Steve Wozniak, sold his like super cool calculator. So they sold that to have the first round of funding. So they became resourceful. They didn't say, I don't have the money, therefore I'm not going to go after my dream. They got resourceful. Okay.
Right. They
Oh,
find a way.
yeah. Like, are you willing to get resourceful? Are you going to just give up and say, okay, no,
Right.
I'm like, no, not gonna try
Mhm.
anything. I'm gonna get resourceful. So some people, the people that it's like, there's this saying that people know, if there's a will, there's a way,
Mhm.
and it's true.
Right. It really is. And wait, before I drop this, question before we wrap up this episode, I would just like also to ask if our viewers have any questions or queries, anything with regards to what we have been talking about so far, or any question about the book. Please feel free to comment down below any questions that you might have. We may be able to answer those comments now or in the future episodes. But feel free if you have any thoughts as to what prompted you in this episode, then please feel free to express them, and then we will eventually respond to that. So in all that you have shared with us, Alinka, tonight, about taking action and about realizing what your excuses are, and now let's say for me as a listener to these things, and receiving all of these information about it, and as the year comes to a close, and I have a few days before the year ends, and then to welcome 2026. So as for you, what would you advise would be the feasible steps, tangible steps for me to start working on an idea or working on a book? Would you recommend doing a to-do list or an outline? So what specific steps would you recommend someone who wants to start doing something would be, a great idea, so we could bring that on to the next year?
Yeah. Well, we typically start with strategy. So we
Sure.
really want to understand, like, what is the market saying about the idea that we have. So we want to validate it. Validate it. Typically, when people think about a book, they already have a specific idea. Some people have multiple ideas, but there's something that is a priority. Like, what is this? What is that unique ability that we have that we can
Mhm.
share with the world? What is it that unique strategy that we've developed, the unique take we have on the world, or on business, or on whatever you're doing, on health? um, how how will getting that out impact our readers and
Mhm.
impact us in our business? So
Mhm.
those are questions to ask and answer, and then we want to understand. Okay, let's take a look at the marketplace.
Okay.
Like, where does our book belong? What are the other books on, within that category? How do we stand out? This is something that we want to analyze, and this is something that like, people never, typically most books fail because that has never been done, or somebody might think like they did that but they didn't really do it. So if you've been publishing books for over a decade, and you've done hundreds of them, like we have, then you're going to have that skill for sure. If this is your first book, and yes, you're a great entrepreneur, a C-suite, you do marketing, that's a valuable experience, but it's not it's but if you haven't done books, then it's not going to be necessarily transferable up to 100%. So part of it makes sense, right? Okay, I put together a company, I have a unique selling proposition. Yes, that's the idea, but like, we really need to dig in and understand where we are, so that we don't have to fix. What some people sometimes do is think that I'm just going to write it and then I'm going to talk to professionals to see how to get it out.
Mhm.
Typically, people waste a lot of time, because then when you actually do talk to a professional, you find out that you need to rewrite things. Like, readers are not going to resonate with that. I sometimes like cringe when I see books written this way by top leaders. I look at the manuscript and I can't believe, like, how can
Right.
you write something that's, for example, so dry, like, so
Mhm.
who are you writing this for? Like, so my first question is like, okay, so who's the reader?
Mhm.
So who's the reader? The reader is okay, anybody who's looking to put together a business. Okay, well, do they all like, all they are they all university professors?
Mhm.
No. So why is this written for a university professor? Like, you are cutting off 90% of your target audience,
Right.
and some people will not even realize that. Like, it's a revelation
Mm.
when they come to us. And to
Right.
me, just knowing that, time is a super valuable resource, something we like, difficult to to get back, right? Um, like, it hurts me to have to say, like, your target audience is not going to resonate with this. Like, we need to completely rewrite this. Like, this, and some people, like, they just don't want to hear that, because, like, I already spent 6 months writing this.
Mm.
Now I'm ready. Now I'm going to speak to you. I'm like, well, looks like you have another 6 months of rewriting this,
Right.
but we can publish this and attract one person who's a university professor who now left the university. Now they're going to set up the company.
Mm.
Or if you want to, actually um, be able to speak to your real target audience, so all of the people that are looking to set up a company, then you need to speak in their language.
Right.
That's why strategy is so important, and that's why we just start with it, so that you write the right book in the right voice, hook your readers the right way.
Right. So you really pose like really good points, such as strategy, identifying the market, and stuff. So you really equipped our readers good points to reflect upon, good questions to think about, over the holidays. So if you have over for our viewers, if you have those questions in your mind, then I hope that Alinka's points here has helped you identify how to think about it, especially over the holidays. So that's it for our conversation for tonight. I hope everyone really, have had an informative moment with us with the Lincoln Night tonight. But don't worry, of course, this episode will come back. And, as we wrap up this episode, so I hope you all take a moment to reflect and see that if any part of this conversation has challenged you, then that's the point, especially of this episode. So I know that excuses seem to be a good reason most days, you being busy and whatnot, but your leadership and your legacy aren't just about what you know. It's about what you're willing to put out into the world, as Alenka said in our episode today. So If you're serious about authority, visibility, and legacy, then feel free to pick up and read your book or your excuse. So don't worry about spending money, because if you just drop a comment or send us a message, then we'll send you a free copy of the book. So of course, before we end this live stream, go on and put a comment on the comment section. A free copy of the book will be sent to you. So, and if you don't want to keep having these ideas or conversations alone, and if you want to engage with Alinka about any book ideas that you have, then join us across our social media platforms or check out our website, leadersbrands.com, and book a time for a chat about your book idea. So thank you everyone for tuning in. I am Chanel, and we will see you next week as we uncover more of your publishing curiosities with Alinka Rutkowska. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks, Chanel. Thank you, everyone. Cool. So we stream to Facebook, TikTok. Awesome.